Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm here to share 10 tips on how to make a morning routine that you will actually stick to. 2020 was the year that I finally created and stuck with a morning routine that I absolutely love. Even though we lived in 3 different locations over the course of 2020, everywhere we went, I still consistently did at least some of my morning routine, and it made such a difference on my goals and my happiness and basically my life. So what I want to do today is give you 10 tips to creating a morning routine of your own. I think there are a lot of videos here on YouTube of this is my morning routine, and I think that those can be valuable. They can give you ideas of things that you might want to include, but at the end of the day, your morning routine is yours. And I'm not here to tell you to get up at 5 a.m. because that doesn't work for everybody. I'm here to give you tips on creating a routine that works for you and your goals and your life. Tip number 1 is the most important, and that is to make it your own. Like I said, you do not have to get up at 5 a.m. to have a successful morning routine. Your morning routine should be about you and what you're working on and what's important in your day. What is important that you get done first thing in the morning? What's your energy like? What is your mood like? What are the things that are going to help you start your day the best way possible? For me, that's a lot of things. I have a lot of energy in the morning, and so I have a lot of things I like to do in the morning. And I have what I call a morning routine basket that's got journals and books and all kinds of things that I like to do in the morning. Just because that's what works for me doesn't mean that has to be what your morning routine looks like in order for you to be successful and achieve all of your goals. So just remember that as you're gathering inspiration from people on the internet or people in your life, that you remember that your morning routine doesn't have to and isn't going to look like anybody else's. And that includes what time it starts. Figuring out what time you want to get up in the morning shouldn't be because some arbitrary article told you that successful people get up at 4 a.m. I know a lot of successful people who are not morning people. So if you are not a morning person, your morning routine might be the 10 minutes between the time that you get up and sit down at your desk. That's still a routine. That's still something that you do every single day. All that matters is that you're doing it consistently every day and you're prioritizing what's important to you. And one of the things that might be important to you is sleep. Tip number 2 is to write it out. So before you start implementing anything into your morning routine, I want you to take some time and I want you to write it down. I want you to write down what you want your morning to feel like. I want you to write down what you want your morning to look like. I want you to write down what activities you think might be a good fit in your morning routine. And I want you to kind of map it out, not with times, not yet. I just want you to brainstorm and journal essentially about what you feel like your morning routine would feel like or look like in an ideal state. For me, it was about quiet time, but also focusing on things that I wouldn't prioritize later in the day. It was about journaling and actually getting that done because I'm way too tired to do that at the end of the day. It was about reading personal development books while my brain was at its sharpest. It was about making sure that I get some movement in before I actually start my day, again, while my energy was the highest. So take some time and journal out what your ideal morning routine would look like. But we are not going to implement that entire routine at one time because tip number 3 is to take it one step at a time. One of the most common questions that I get is how do I start a morning routine? And my biggest piece of advice is to take one step. That is part of your morning routine and just start with that one step and do that one step consistently. You can decide whether that's a week, 2 weeks, and then you can layer on another step. For me, that step was gratitude journaling. Last year on January 1st, I cracked open a brand new 5-year journal and I started writing down something that I was thankful for every single day. And that was the foundation of my morning routine. Even if I didn't do anything else in the morning before it was time to go to work, I always made sure that I wrote down something that I was thankful for. Now, that has a lot of other benefits. There's a lot of other sciencey things behind gratitude, but for me, that was my foundational action step. That was the one thing that I started with in my morning routine. Then once that became a routine and I did that consistently, then I added on another layer of reading and I would read in the morning. Then I added on another layer of journaling and then I continued to add on piece by piece until I completed the full morning routine that I wanted to work on. The issue when you do all the steps together the first day is that when you miss one of those steps, then you miss all of those steps. When they're all linked together from the beginning, it's so much easier to just not do any of them. When you layer them piece by piece, sometimes I'll skip a step but I won't skip all the steps because in my mind, they're each an individual step instead of linking them all together, which eventually they are linked together as a routine, but I started them at different times so it doesn't feel that way when I skip one of them because trust me, there are days that I don't do every step in my routine, but I at least do some aspect of my morning routine. And I know that this can be really frustrating because it means that it's going to take you longer. It means that it's going to take longer to get to that full-blown morning routine that you're really excited about, but I promise it will be more sustainable in the long run. Tip number 4 is to try and center at least one piece of your morning routine around your goals. Now, if you're the person that is like, no, Laken, I'm not a morning person and I'm sleeping in and my morning routine is the 10 minutes between the time that I get up and the time that I start work. Is there something that you can do 1 minute of those 10 minutes that is related to your goals? Is there, maybe it's just drinking an extra glass of water because you're trying to get in more water because you're trying to lose weight. Maybe it's reading one page of a book because you're trying to read more. Whatever it is, try and make at least one piece of your morning routine related to your goals. For me right now, that's filling in my health planner. Because I am very focused on my weight loss journey, I'm spending time every morning as part of my morning routine updating the sections in my health planner. And I put it in my morning routine because I knew it would consistently happen because my morning routine is something that I do consistently. Whereas if I tried to fill that in another time of the day, like at the end of the day, it would be way less likely to happen. But then tip number 5 is to include something just because it makes you happy. What can you include in your morning routine? Again, even if it's just a minute, that is something that brings you joy, because starting your day off with a smile or with something that just fills you up is going to help you have a better day overall. So is there something small? Maybe it's 1 minute of a really happy song. Maybe it's snuggling a pet like mine. Maybe it's sitting on the couch reading. For me, being able to just sit there and sip my coffee and read is the part of my morning routine that is joy. That's just for me. Yes, a lot of times I am reading some sort of nonfiction or personal development book, but it makes me happy. That part makes me happy. So is there something that you can incorporate? Again, one step at a time, but eventually layer in something in your morning routine that just makes you happy. All right, number 6 is to break up with the snooze button. Trust me, I've been there. The snooze button and I were in a very committed relationship. There were days that I would snooze for hours. I would say, I'm gonna wake up at 6 and I'm gonna get all these things done before I go to my full-time job. And I would snooze in 9-minute increments until 8 a.m. and then I would jump out of bed, shower, get ready very quickly, and run out the door to the subway to get to work. I did that a lot before I finally broke up with the snooze button. And here is the secret to breaking up with the snooze button. Your phone needs to sleep in a room that is not your bedroom. I know it is hard to not lay in bed and scroll on your phone. I get it. I'm also very attached to my phone, but the moment that my phone, and at that time my phone was my alarm, and now I have a different alarm, but when my phone was my alarm and I put my phone in the kitchen away from the bed to sleep, I broke up with the snooze button. It made it so much easier to not snooze and just go back to bed. Now, I'm not here to tell you that I was perfect. There were days that I got out of bed, got the phone, brought it with me back to bed, snoozed, and went back to sleep. That happened. Like I was not perfect when I first started this, but over time, I eventually broke up with the snooze button, and now it is rare that I will snooze, even though I have an alarm clock that's right next to my bed now. But I'm here to tell you that whether you are working on a 10-minute or a 2-hour morning routine, breaking up with your snooze button is going to be better for your sleep and for your mental health and for your morning routine. All right, tip number 7 is to track it in some way. I have talked at length about an app that I use and love called Routinery, and that is where I have my entire morning routine set up step by step, and I literally click play. It's a play button, and then the routine starts, and I go through it step by step, and I click next when I want to go to the next one. I also have the option to pause if it's taking me a little bit longer, and then I also have the option to skip if I'm just like, I'm not doing it today. But what I love about the app is it helps me remember all the steps of my routine. In an ideal world, I wouldn't need an app to tell me all the steps of my morning routine. It would just be such a routine, it would be so ingrained that I would just do it. But at the end of the day, my brain has a lot of other things going on inside of it, and I don't remember all the steps. So I like having a place that I track my morning routine and I can easily check off, I do it digitally on my phone, all the steps that are part of my morning routine. I would encourage you to do the same. And if you want to do this on a piece of paper with a habit tracker or in an app like Routinery, but having a place that you have your morning routine listed out and you track it, at least until it feels like it is a routine. At this point, I do feel like if I let go of the app, I could probably get through most of, if not all of my morning routine without it. I may not do it in the exact same order, but I think I would probably do all of the steps. But there's something about the order too. I have things in an order for a reason. It's gonna sound so silly, and this is kind of just a bonus tip about doing things in a certain order. But some of my journaling, I have things paired up based on the type of pen that I use. So there's 2 types of journaling that I use, like a click pen, and then 2 that I use a Sharpie pen, and I have them in that order so that it goes together. I know that that sounds like a little bit extra, but it helps not having to switch out the pen. It helps me go through the whole routine smoothly. So I like using the app to keep me on track with what I am doing. I would just encourage you to find a way to track your morning routine, even if it's just tracking that you did it every single day, even if it's not writing down all the steps, but having all the steps written out really helps. Tip number 8 is to adjust it for the weekends. There's a lot of controversy on this. Some people say you have to get up at the same time on the weekends that you do on the weekdays, and you need to do the exact same, the whole morning routine. It's a morning routine for a reason, and you need to do it every single day. That doesn't work for me. I love my long morning routine, and on the work days when I know that the rest of the day is going to be at doing things for other people, working my 9-to-5 job, working on other things, I like having control of the first 3 hours of my day. On the weekends, most of the day is in my control anyway. So I don't feel like I need to be as protective of those morning hours. So what I've decided to do is I just have a shorter version of my routine that I do on the weekends. It's still in my Routinery app, and it's some of the same steps, but I have taken out some of the steps because those things I can likely get done at some point later in the day, or they're not as important that I do on the weekends because I'm not as inundated with a lot of other things coming at me during the day. So feel free to make an adjustment for the weekend, figure out what works best for you, but I would encourage you to still do something, to do some step on the weekends that is important to you that you do every single day regardless of the week or the weekends. And also, it does not have to be at the same time on the weekends. Just because I get up at 5:30 on the weekdays to do my morning routine does not mean that I'm getting up at 5:30 a.m. on the weekends. I let myself sleep in, and then whenever I get up, that's when I get up and start my weekend version of my morning routine. Tip number 9 is to leave a little bit of buffer time. What I mean by this is once you map out your morning routine and you figure out, okay, this takes this much time and this takes this much time, whatever time you have to be done with that, whether it's the time that your kids get up or the time that your full-time job starts or the time you have to leave your house if you're working outside of the home right now, whatever time you have to be done with your morning routine, buffer that a little bit. So for me, I give myself a 30-minute buffer. I just like having that extra time in my morning just in case something changes. If it happens to be that I sleep in or my alarm didn't go off or I spent more time on checking my phone, which is guilty. Sometimes I do that. Or I'm really into the book and I spend 20 more minutes reading in the morning. Whatever it is, I like having that extra amount of buffer time between the end of my morning routine and the start of my day just in case. Sometimes, rarely, everything lines up perfectly and I don't use any of my buffer time and I have an extra 30 minutes in my day and I can go look at my to-do list and see if there's something that I want to tackle or what I should do, but I'm not good at is maybe sit down and rest for 30 minutes and just chill for those 30 minutes before the day starts. But I would suggest having a little bit of buffer time because things always happen. And then tip number 10 is don't be afraid to change it up. If there is something that is part of your morning routine that is not working for you, change it. What isn't working about it? Is the action together? Cross it off and don't do it. Maybe it's not something that was meant for you. Maybe you want to shorten the time and do it for less time, or maybe you want to lengthen the time and do it for longer. Maybe it's something that you're just doing temporarily. Right now, I'm reading a book called 100 Days to Brave, but when that book is done, that won't be part of my morning routine anymore. So I will delete that piece of my morning routine from my Routinery app, and I will either add something in or I'll take that time and lump it onto somewhere else or have a little bit of extra buffer time. If something is temporary or something isn't working, change it. It is just because it is a routine does not mean it has to stay the same forever. The benefits of a morning routine are being in control for that first part of your day, are scheduling in time before other things start to pop up. It's not about having this picture perfect morning routine that you're gonna do the exact same for the rest of your life. It's about having a morning routine that brings you value and benefits you and your goals in the current season of life that you're in. So I hope that that was helpful, because I know for me, having my morning routine as that foundation to my day, that no matter where we were living last year or what time zone we were in, I had those actions and those things that I got up and did in the morning that were just for me, that helped me start my day on the right foot. And that is gonna look different for you. So figure out what that looks like. How much time are you gonna spend on your morning routine? What time do you really wanna wake up? And here's a bonus tip. If you are traditionally a morning person and you do want to work on getting up earlier, do not go from getting up at 8 a.m. to getting up at 5 a.m. That's gonna work again for like a week, and then you're gonna go back to the snooze button. I would recommend inching it back 15-minute increments. So if you are consistently getting up at 8 this week, start getting up at 7:45 and do that consistently for a week, and then bump it back to 7:30 until you get to a time that you want to consistently wake up at. The best way to implement a habit is to implement it one step at a time. The same is true for your wake up time. The same is true for your morning routine. And I hope that over time you are able to develop a morning routine that works for you and that brings you value and helps you make progress on your goals. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. Happy planning. There are people in your life, and I started doing a gratitude really? Updating my health pump.